Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have Power Nickel. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol PNPNF and on the TSXV under the symbol PNPN, and is a Canadian junior exploration company focusing on high potential nickel, copper, gold, and other battery metal prospects in Canada and Chile. On February 1st, 2021, Power Nickel, formerly called Chilean Metals, completed the acquisition of its option to acquire up to 80% of the Nisk project from Critical Elements Lithium Corp, which is CRE on the TSXV. The Nisk property comprises a large land position 20 kilometers of strike length with numerous high-grade intercepts. Power Nickel is focused on expanding its current high-grade nickel-copper PGE mineralization 43-101 resource with a series of drill programs designed to test the initial Nisk discovery zone and to explore the land package for adjacent potential nickel deposits. Please welcome its CEO today. We have Terry Lynch. Nice to see you, Terry.
Great to be here, Anna. Thanks for having us on. And looking forward to getting your audience up to speed with all things Power Nickel. So without further ado, knowing time is tight, we'll dive right into the presentation. So, our headline, we call it the world's first carbon neutral nickel mine. We'll get into that as we go forward, but you'll see there's some very natural things that we have as a company that enable us to make that claim, and it'll be a very beneficial claim for us. Forward-looking statements, we'll be making some today. We're not going to tell you anything we don't believe to be true, but it's always good to do your own due diligence. I find in investing that it's really important to have the macro and the micro aligned. That's when I've made personally the most money, and I think that's when you'll make the most money. And I think those alignments are here and now for Power Nickel and for commodities. So you'll see that chart on the top left talks about the commodity to equity ratio, and we're down here in the bottom right-hand corner. It's turned, and it's not just turning on the chart, it's actually turning in real life. So for example, in the electrification space, which is our space, the battery metals, so the nickel, copper, lithium, cobalt, palladium, platinum, that type of stuff, it's over $50 billion worth of battery metal plants are shovel in the ground turning, and these things will be up and running in 27, 28. Well, they're going to need a lot of minerals to supply those in North America, and that's where we come in. Why is that happening now? Well, generally the governments are moving to, decarbonize our world, to move away from oil and to more EV, electrical vehicles, and to battery sustained ones. So that's been driven by government policy. So in the U.S., the Inflation Reduction Act is obviously a prime mover. It provides incentives in the way of vehicle reduction, so subsidies, so direct subsidies. So you'll get a subsidy if it has, at least right now, I think it's 40% North American content, and ultimately by the end of in just a few short years, it's up to 90%. Well, you really can't get to 90% in an EV if you don't have North American nickel. So that's going to put people like Power Nickel in some seriously advantageous positions. And it's not just the United States. This is happening in the EU. It's happening in Japan. It's happening in Korea. It's also happening in Canada, where I'm from. So just recently, our federal government, back about 4 weeks ago, announced, in addition to all the other incentives they've got for exploration for minerals, they're now going to actually provide a 30% tax credit to build critical mineral mines. So the mine and the equipment. And then Quebec, where we're at, they're providing up to 25% to, basically build or equip a mine. So out of nowhere, all of a sudden now we got 55% of government grants to build our mine. So if we're building a $400 million nickel mine, we're getting $200 million. Think about that. Our market cap is 25 million US. So then, that thing should have rippled through the stock market, not just for the Power Nickels of the world, but Critical Elements, who we acquired this project from, who has a great lithium project, NMG, Nouveau Monde graphite. So, there's a lot of things I think that were missed because of the regional banking crisis, but those facts are rapidly coming to play. And I think we'll see that this is just a tremendous tide that's going to float a lot of boats. And the boat you want to be on, one of the boats you want to be on, is Power Nickel. So on the micro side, let's talk about that. I'm basically saying to you that there's going to be multiple times our stock price in the near term. That's a bold move for any CEO to say. And I say that because of the math. The math is commercialized, perceived nickel sulfide mines trade, that chart above, we'll get into more detail as we go through the show, between 140 million and 500 million US. We just did our last round of financing at 25 million US. That's where we're trading at today. We've shown with our drill bit that we're going to be soon commercial. Okay, we believe we're commercial now, but the evidence is mounting in our drill bit and will ultimately be proven out in our new 43-101 that's coming in Q3. And then this gap will shrink. All of a sudden, we'll be in that group as well. And that's why there's such massive upside in the next short period of time. And we're fully financed. So these drill results are going to come out every 4 to 6 weeks. We put some ones out a couple of weeks ago. We expect to have more drill results out next week. So this is a very news-heavy organization. We've done a lot of work, and a lot of good news is coming out now. And I guess one of the best pieces of news is that this is, our current success, but it's not going to be the end of our success. This is going to be a very large ore body, we believe. The analogies in Canada were Lynn Lake, 22 million tons, Voisey's Bay, plus 50 million tons. Right now, we think we're going to be updating our 43-101 into around the 8 to 10 range, but we expect we're going to get into that 20 to 50 range. That'll make us $1 billion and then some. So it's a long ways to go from here, and strong evidence that we're moving there right now. Where do we start? Well, we start in Quebec. That's the story. It's a phenomenal place to explore for minerals, probably the best place in the world for critical minerals, I would say right now. Generally, the Quebec government's done some amazing things strategically to enable this to happen. They had the foresight some years back to build the infrastructure to allow exploration to happen in the province. So we're right off a major 4-lane road, like literally drive off a major 4-lane road to our deposit. Across the street on the other side of the road is a major Hydro-Quebec substation, which is there to power these types of projects. It's also 8 kilometers away from a town called Namaska, where there's an existing major lithium mine that's being commercialized, and 3 or 4 other mines in the neighborhood, and then that's an airport. So you got the supply lines that that you need to sort of build and construct plants, and they're in place. Plus, it's being done in a community that values mining. So in this case, the Quebec government's done an amazing job of working with and educating, in this case, our Aboriginal partner, the Cree, on the benefits of mine development in their neighborhood. So we obviously do things in consultation with them. They're our partners. They definitely participate in the projects. Our workers stay at Cree lodges, beautiful resort lodge that they built to service that community. And that's the type of relationship that we have, and that the Quebec government has been able to engender. So that's really positive. In many mining areas, you're fighting to get your mine built. That's not the case here. Then finally, the big thing with the mine incentives is we just finished raising $4.8 million. The stock was priced at 50 cents a unit with a half warrant at 50 cents, callable at $1. So the stock at the time we announced it was 28 cents. So how do we do that? Well, we did it because the incentives exist that you can have a structure where a high tax paying Quebecer pays 50 cents for the unit, immediately sells it to your end user investor, in this case, the core group that owns about 70% of the company, of which I'm the largest, for 25 cents. And the Quebec-based investor gets his tax reduction from 54% to 42%, so he's out of it and happy with that return. The investor, in this case, ourselves, we put in a quarter, but we got 50 cents to work with. So that was great for for us. You get $1 in and $2 working for you. And obviously, if you're an existing shareholder, you're getting diluted at 50 cents. So that's a happy day for you. So that's what's possible on the exploration side in Quebec. And now we can see on the commercialization side, we can get up to half of our mine project built as well by tax credits. So there's nothing quite like developing a mine in Quebec, I would say. We talked about the outset of being the world's first carbon neutral nickel mine. Why is that important to us? Well, it's important because in addition to being obviously pro-environmental ourselves, it's also a strategic competitive advantage that we have that many nickel mines do not have. So we were in Korea recently speaking with many of the Korean automotive battery manufacturers, and without question, one of the key things they want is cleaner nickel. They're doing a lot of work, obviously, with the laterites in the Philippines and Indonesia, and they're obviously doing the best they can, but it takes a lot more CO2 to make that. That'll never really become clean nickel. So having an ability to get clean nickel to help balance the dirty nickel is going to be important, I think. One of the things we've done, we've offset our current carbon footprint, which is based on drilling. We use a company called CarbonX to do that, provide us with Verra certified credits at a very fair price. Our drilling cost went from 200 a meter to 225 cents. That's a good investment for us. We'll also be using the green hydropower to power our mine going forward. We've got a plan to use the most environmentally friendly design to actually manufacture the nickel. And because we have an ultramafic deposit, it just so happens that the ultramafic tailings naturally sequester CO2. So there's a very good chance we can make this the world's first carbon neutral mine, and certainly will keep the world and the public aware of that as we move forward. As important as it is to be carbon neutral in this world, it's also important to be commercial. To be commercial, you have to have tonnage and grade. So you got to have a resource. Well, we started with a 3.1 million tons at about 1.6% nickel EQ. That was the start. It was a historic resource. We needed to prove that that was valid. We proved that in the first round of drills, where we basically had 8 holes, 7 of the 8 hit. We got 18, 19, 27 meters of 1.5% nickel EQ or better. So we knew we were onto something special. We basically laid out this ultimately a 30,000 meter program, which we're about halfway through. We've had some amazing drill results. The last 3 assays, we've always had a trophy hole. The first one was 150 meters away from the nearest resource, and it was 40 meters, so almost 1.6% nickel. I mean, that was a top 5 hole of nickel anywhere in the world. Amazing hole. Then the next set of assays, about 10 meters of almost 3% nickel. And then just a few weeks ago, we released about 16 meters of 1.6% nickel. So amazing holes. About 6% of our holes are featuring the 1% nickel. This is what the river nickel looks like. I want you to get a perception of it, because you can see there's a lot of turns to it. It's a squiggly river like the Mississippi. If you miss one of these turns, you could miss several million tons. So it's important to keep that in mind as you're exploring. This is sort of a top-down look. It's about a 1 kilometer sort of stretch that we're currently exploring. We expect it will produce about somewhere north of 8 million tons in our updated 43-101, which is more than enough to make this a commercial nickel mine if we not find another ton of nickel. But that would make this a mine. So that's why I'm confident that we're going to become a mine, and thus are worthy of the commercial multiples. And we've had great thickness and great grades all the way through this. So the point to be made here is we're working about 2% of our land area right now, and about maybe 15% of our ultramafically mapped land area. So that's exciting. We just did an airborne EM over this, got some preliminary results back. Looks fantastic. We actually tested that by going 5 kilometers away from our core deposit. This is a core deposit down here on the left. 5 kilometers away, at the end of our ultramafic sequence and our property package, we found a huge PGM kick. So we had like almost 8 meters of 1 ounce platinum and palladium. That's an amazing hole. And it was in the just above the ultramafic. It was a marshy area, so it was a bit of a winter target. So we drilled it in the winter. It was a bit of a wildcat target, but obviously it came in, double sixes, as they say. So it was a phenomenal hole. But it also, that type of hole is very encouraging for how big this thing and how bountiful it could be. That's the type of thing you see in Voisey's Bay. That's the type of thing you see in Norilsk. And here we have it 5 kilometers away from us. So we know this sequence through here is well lit up based on the airborne EM. So we think there's going to be some amazing discoveries made over the next little while. And we've got some interesting, in addition to using airborne EM, which is a fairly known technology, we're using some cutting edge stuff that we think will be highly impactful here. We're using something called ambient noise tomography. It's basically called sound mapping. We think Elon Musk brought it to North America, where we discovered it at Chilean Metals, which is a fine project in Michigan, Minnesota border called Tamarack. And they're using it there to explore for nickel. That's where we sort of got wind of it. And basically this sound mapping, what it does is they'll be rolled out in about 2 weeks in our project, is they'll put these geodes, these little silver things over here in the ground. It'll pulse about 2,000 meters into the ground, a sound wave. And that sound wave will come back as a sound map. And they'll capture those sound maps, and they'll correlate those sound maps to the hard scientific data. So, for example, where we had that 40-meter intersection of 1.6% nickel EQ, That's a massive sulfide. So that's what we're looking for. So that has got a very particular sound map associated with it, effectively a signature. So we'll be looking for other similar signatures to that and to our other, successes, so that we can know that if we find those sound maps, and then we can correlate that with the airborne EM and the IP and other techniques, we can with a higher degree of confidence, drill and intersect those, deposits quicker than what we otherwise might be able to. So we're really stoked about getting this out, and we think it'll be able to advance our discovery curve very quickly. If you look at our drill results and our guidance, and we're us saying we think we're going to, when we update, somewhere north of 8 million tons, and we think there's going to be a lot more, then all of a sudden this chart becomes a very powerful one for you. This is all the other nickel sulfide mines in the of the sort of commercial non-built yet mines in the world, and you can see they range in values from sort of like 140 million US to 480 US. Tamarack, which we spoke about just a moment ago, this is for 60%. So that mine's almost worth close to 450 million. So if we make the move to 8 to 10 and then beyond, this is where we're going. And that's happening soon. That's happening when we update that 43101, or sooner if I can wake up investors that are watching now to say, hey, go and get your bargain rate now, because it's definitely on the table. And if you look at our drill bits, we actually post all of our drill collars and azimuths. We also post our mine model. People can come to these conclusions themselves. The science is out there. You can get in early. It's happening now. Sometime between now and our 43101, this gap will shrink and our valuation will be there. What's the action plan? We're going to be releasing more drill results probably next week. We'll get another round of assays out. That's what the schedule seems to indicate. And after that, there'll be the airborne EM probably in about 3 weeks. We're using all of this technology to identify and design the new drill program, which will start in mid-July. It's a fully funded 15,000 meter program. So we're good for cash until well into Q2 next year. We'll release our metallurgical study, which is being done to show how we can process the ore into mineable material. That'll happen probably in August, early September, and that'll allow us to report our 43101 in Q3. And then we will deliver, we hope, a PEA or better. The or better is that we're talking with groups that want to do a feasibility study on our project right now that see it as a mine and are prepared to pay for that. So we're looking at that as an option. That might be one of the ways to expedite the development of the project and to ramp our progress going forward. So the nickel is the reason why you would own Power Nickel. Now, the neat part of Power Nickel is we had some substantial assets in the copper gold space, and we're gonna spin those out. So it's going to start with this company called it's going to be called Consolidation Gold and Copper. It's going to spin out this gold project, copper gold project in BC's Golden Triangle, fairly famous geological project there. This is the Mount Rainey that overlooks the town of Stewart. This is the Golden Triangle down here. It's one of the more prolific, gold copper regions in the world. Many millions of ounces of gold and silver and many billions of tons of copper have been found there. We've just done a bunch of work, about 3 separate areas of half-ounce gold at surface with copper. This thing has never been drilled. The Scotty Resources, who are just north of us, has probably one of my favorite junior golds. They have like a number of top, sort of 50-gram holes for gold, and that's similar to what Great Bear had. So it's a super exciting resource in my mind. So we'll be spinning this out, and it'll be coming out probably worth 10 to 15 million. And we'll separately finance it. We'll raise like $1.5 million and move forward with this. And then that project will then become the group that takes over these Chilean projects we have. So we have major projects in Chile, sort of 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 kilometers in hectares, in size. So massive projects. The problem in Chile, there was obviously political concern there. That's lessening now because I think Chile's coming back to, sort of being more practical and recognizing that mining, needs lots of investment and needs lots of encouragement, and they're seemingly coming back to their senses in that respect. And I think that the constitutional, elections which were fairly seriously defeated by more than 2/3 of the populace. And the recent changes in the Senate suggest that, Chile is going to take a practical approach, as they have throughout their history in the last 25 years, to developing mines. So what's interesting here is we're in the desert. The ambient noise tomography is a new technology and could be very powerful in the desert. It's being used in the Western Australian desert. In the desert, there's a mineral called caliche, which is in the bases of sand that obstructs IP and gravity, which would be used to put together regional geographic programs. So we've had some major kicks down here, but never been able to sort of find the source. The ambient noise tomography could be the solution here. So when we're done with it at Nisk, we're sending the geodes down to Chile, and we'll be advancing exploration there with that. So that could be quite exciting, and that'll all happen in the new project. The last thing to speak about is we have a royalty. We're in discussions with the royalty company on. We expect hopefully to transact this into a sale for $5 to $7 million US. It's like almost a quarter of our worth at the moment. This is worth a lot more in the long run, but we get the cash now. We have to dilute Nisk less, and if we see Nisk as being a $1 billion project, which is what we do, then obviously that's the play for us. The management team is just on the operating side, just myself and Amena and Hilly in Chile. We use GeoVector in a very esteemed management team, Joe Campbell and Adam Finley and Eric Herbert and the team to run our Quebec operations. And we use Apex Engineering, another great group, to run our operations in BC. The board, I shuffled on from them, but Greg was a MD of Haywood. Peter is an experienced retired corporate lawyer and less a successful businessman. The board owns about 4% of the company. The key shareholders are myself and my family, Critical Elements, the Stern family, who brought me in, BT Global and Palace Capital, who are two very successful hedge funds in Canada. Collectively, we own about 50%. In the last two rounds, this group has bought 65 to 70% of each round. So obviously, we like our own cooking, we're eating it. Just wrapping things up before we go to questions, we made a major nickel sulfide discovery, trading at a massive discount to our peer group. Lots of drill results coming and more to come, in the next, 6 weeks, some starting next week. And they'll be, basically drilling from now to the end of the year. Heavy news flow, not just the assays, but also the airborne EM, the metallurgical studies, the new 43-101. We're fully funded, so we're not raising money anytime soon. This could be a very big project. Think of, Lynn Lake, 22 million tons, Voisey's Bay, more than 50, something in that order of magnitude. We're in a very hot area, the battery metals. And of course, we've got the spinoff coming, which is a great kicker bonus for you. And we're doing it all in Quebec, where it's possible to not only do half-price exploration, but it's also possible to build mines for, with a 50% subsidy from the government. So it's a phenomenal place to work. And this is a phenomenal opportunity to be looking at this moment in time. So with that, Anna, I'm going to turn it over to you and see if we've got some questions out there.
Great job, Terry. Yes, we do have some questions for you. All right, let's, Sid Turner wants to know, what significantly differentiates you from other nickel projects?
A couple things. One is our grade. So most nickel projects would not have our grade and would not have our tonnage. So, if you look at it and our comparables, there's only like half a dozen really comparable projects in the world to us. All of them are worth, somewhere between 5 to 20 times our value. So that's, it's grade and tonnage. So that's what, and then I think the other thing that makes us so special is we're in Quebec. So financing both exploration and development is going to be way better.
Nick H wants to know, what grants have you received or could you receive? And if you can talk about the amounts.
So we've done 2 financings in the last 6 months, raised about around $9 million. So $4.5 million of that was made possible by the these incentives. So we always did at double the price. So there's 4.5 that we've actually received. Going forward, there's all sorts of grants, to advance metallurgical studies, et cetera, like that, in the hundreds of thousands and low millions of dollars. And then, of course, in terms of the building going forward, we can receive up to 55% in tax credits, which we can translate to cash to build. So if we had a $400 million nickel mine, as much as 200 million of that could be, beneficially gained by us through the government programs.
And Lenny Haynes asks, when you say you're fully financed, does that mean that you will not be going to the market for any funding? And for how long do you anticipate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously fully financed for a period of time. We're obviously growing company, so we'll need capital. But basically, we just closed around at $4.8 million. So we're basically providing guidance to say that we won't be going to the market for capital for exploration until probably sometime in 2024, probably Q1, Q2, 2024.
And Mike Barber wants to know when we can expect an update to the 43101 to be released.
Yeah, so we basically were planning to release that as soon as the metallurgical study is done. So we're pushing, obviously, our metallurgical team to get it done as quickly as possible. Probably it's going to be August, September.
Okay, thank you for that. Rick Perez wants you to talk about any remaining infrastructure or construction prior to begin production.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is just an exploration program. People shouldn't confuse it as a mine. We're basically at this point identifying the resource. So you'd have to build this front to back. Now, the good news is that you're off a major highway. You're in an area that's building lots of mines. You've got Hydro-Quebec across the street. So it's not like we have to build roads or power lines. All that's there. Airports are there. People are there. So a lot of the core base infrastructure is in place, but you'd actually obviously have to build the mine. It's about a 2-year process to build a mine after it's permitted, of course.
And Joan wants to know, how does your carbon neutral status affect your production costs?
You know what? We don't think it's going to be that negative, really. We think that it's just we're lucky in that we happen to be right across the road from the cheapest hydroelectric power in the world, or amongst them, and of course, why wouldn't you use that to power your plant, right? So it just so happens that makes us green. So okay, we're going to take advantage of that. And then the other thing is the ultramafic nature of our deposit. It just so happens that ultramafic rock naturally sequesters CO2. So there's just a few lucky breaks that makes it easier for us to do it. And then, of course, we're going to design everything we can in. And what I've found with environmental processes, it's like using our Verra certified credits to offset our drilling. It costs us an extra 25 cents. Okay, but if it's not just the cost, there may be some incremental costs. I don't think it'll be large for us, but there's also going to be incremental benefit. You're going to pay more for clean green nickel than you will for dirty nickel. That's going to be you imagine from a competitive perspective, Ford is buying clean green nickel from Power Nickel, and GM is buying dirty nickel from Indonesia. I don't know what they're doing. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm just saying you can imagine marketers would have a field day on that. So that's right. What's going to be happening. People will use, you can see it all the time whenever we go and shop about the environmentally green things that, people are merchandising around. Of course, they're going to do it, and that'll be an advantage for us. So that's why we'll do it. It makes sense. But obviously it's an important part of our approach going forward.
Joe Saunders wants you to give a timeline to production.
That's the difficult thing, because it depends on permitting, and permitting is not it can take you 2 years to 5 years. So, I mean, realistically, here we are in 2024, miracle, equivalent, would be, I don't know, a miracle would be 2028. A great result would be 2029. Still a great effort would be 2030. And
Ken O'Brien wants you to talk a little bit about your team and any successful exits they've had in the past.
Yeah, the team at this stage is, pretty lean from the management side. It's just myself. I've not had a successful exit in mining, in other sectors of businesses I've been in, but not mining. So this is my, while I've been in the mining space for 10 years, it's been a long and painful process. However, for example, the GeoVector, Joe Campbell, who is leading, and his team, Adam Finley and Eric Herbert, are leading our geological process. Those guys have been associated with a lot of successful, companies and exits. And, we lean on that expertise to provide us guidance going forward. And we will have, we believe there's, this thing is in such high demand. We've got several, we're at this point, like 5 or 6 NDAs with majors on this already, and we're still really still with a historical resource. Our updated 43101 is not out yet, but this is super hot.
And speaking of that, Freddie Ray wants you to talk a little bit about any majors producing near you and the 43101s as far as they are concerned. What was that performed on the entire property or just the small part you're utilizing currently? Yeah,
so your 43101, when you do it, is done on the area you're working right now. So we're working about 2.5% of our land package. So we'll obviously describe our land package, but we'll say we're working on this. But you can see, obviously we stepped out with that one hole, and 5 kilometers away we had almost 8 meters of 1 ounce material PGN. So that's pretty exciting step out, and so we'll speak to that in the 43101. But obviously the focus of it will be on the core deposit, that the one we've got the most drilling results on. And I forget the second part of that question.
That was pretty much it. The 43101 on the entire property or just the small part you're utilizing.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about once you are producing, who are your customers?
So basically, it will be obviously the battery manufacturers. So people that are making batteries, the Department of Defense. There's a lot of high-end need for nickel and defense contracting. All forms of powders are used for everything from plating the US $100 bills to many other surgical instruments and stuff like that. So and the interesting part is if you make a nickel mine that's not just producing concentrate, but actually can make wires and powders and anodes, which is what our mine would do, you're going to triple your economics. So you're not going to get LME, you're going to get 3 times LME for your pricing. So that's why you spend the extra, $150 million in capital cost to do that, but you get transform your economics.
And last question for you, Terry, due to time. Ted Heimer says your drill results look good. Great. Will there be more drill results in the near term?
Yeah, so we should have some drill results, I think, next week, according to the schedule that I'm seeing, and then probably 4 weeks after that. And that'll be the last of this round of drilling. And then we'll be pretty shortly thereafter starting to drill again from now until Christmas to get the next 15,000 meters in and ramp this thing up, hopefully to 15, 20,000 tons.
Well, good luck with that. Thank you so much. Great presentation today.
Great. Thanks for having us. Have a great day.
All right. We'll see you again in the near future, Terry. Thank you all for watching. We'll be right back with our next presenter.